Chapter 15. The month of June was closing out in western Europe, and summer had now come with a vengeance. The afternoon temperature had climbed into the 90s in the light, and a line of thunderstorms off to the west spawned from the waters of Lake Erie, left the air laden with a muggy heaviness that effectively stifled any movement. Even the trees hung limp and lifeless, as though too weary to rustle their leaves. A raven circled lazily overhead, splittering the stillness with an occasional raucous call. But no other bird calls were heard. A few cows clustered together in superior, in a stupor, beneath the spreading shade of an oak tree. Further on, a pair of horses stood side by side and facing in opposite directions, their flicking tails keeping the flies away from each other's faces. Benjamin's steed snapped the reins once lightly, just to remind the mule he was still there. Near flopped backwards momentarily. Other than that, there was no sign that they noted his presence. Benjamin sat back, content to let them set their own pace. Though he had left his home just a few minutes earlier, the sweat already trickled from beneath his wide brimmed hat into his eyes, and there was a stickiness in his armpits, but he gave little mind to it. His thoughts were on other things, primarily on his oldest son, who he just can't possibly leave alone. 9 months had now passed since that dark September month, and the bitter confrontation between father and son. Benjamin still felt sickened whenever he let his mind run over a few moments at Asa Lily's tavern. The angry words, Joshua's mocking laughter, stinging blow Benjamin had given his son. His mind always stopped at that point, freezing the imagery of the crazed blankness in Joshua's eyes. The crazed blankness. He grabbed the pistol and come within a hair's breadth of killing his father. Oh, come on! Nobody even had to stop him. He just didn't do it. The self-deception in this old fool who can't come to terms with the fact that his son thought he was going to be murdered by his father, who hates him. They learned later that from the tavern he had gone to the boarding house and cleaned out his room, then disappeared. If I don't want to clean out my room, I just want to disappear. He took the horse with him. Technically, he had stolen it. A charge even more serious than attempted robbery. But Benjamin, using some of their last cash reserves, had paid for it, and the charges were quietly dropped. The men of Palmyra keenly felt Benjamin's shame and let him know he had done all that was expected of a man. Since that time there had been no direct word from Joshua. Not even as much as a note. There were only the rumors. He was fired from a job in Buffalo for drunkenness. He had made it to Pittsburgh and lost the horse gambling. He was working the keel boats along the Ohio. He had been in a brawl and nearly killed a man in Cincinnati. Cincinnati, Cincinnati. His mother had grown more despondent with the passing months, and they rarely spoke openly of Joshua anymore. But each time a rider came into the yard, she would step quickly to the window, her eyes lighting with momentary hope, before she saw who it was and slowly lowered the curtain once again. The latest trailhead for both the Oregon and Santa Fe Trail. The town with a body reputation. Ben had not told his wife the part about the body, only that the word about Joshua was positive. Or at least it seemed to be. What's body? She immediately sat down and written a letter and insisted Nathan take it into one of his stores. Swatting at a horse and buzzing past the ground. He understood Josh was hurt, and the pride that kept him from writing had been strictly directed toward himself. He could have forgotten his son's sorrow. But Joshua's quarrel was not with his mother or the rest of the family. It had only galled Benjamin further that he wouldn't give in and write his mother a letter. But you give in and suck your own dick, you fat ass. Benjamin had never been one to give credence to the idea of bad blood. But with Joshua he found himself wondering. At first he had been filled with a deep guilt. He had treated Joshua more gently, not always jumping full speed on the stubborn. But things have been different. Yes, they would have. But he had finally put it aside. He treated Joshua no differently than he had treated the other children. Oh, that's fair. Nathan had never reared back like a rebellious colt fighting the halter rope. Melissa spoke her mind freely enough, heaven knows, but it had never brought her into open battle with her father. And no steed, not in all the 8 generations since the first one stepped off the boat in Boston almost 200 years earlier. No steed had ever been taught to go after another man's property. Gold plates. That's fair. Why did he go after the gold? Benjamin was, but still they wouldn't. Benjamin was jerked out of his brooding as a movement off to his right. He was heading for Palmyra Village and was just passing the Martin Harrison. A man came out of the side door and started around the house. Benjamin yanked sharply on the reins, pulling the mules up. Ho, Martin, is that you? The well-dressed man turned and one arm came up in. Benjamin Steed, how are you? Fine, Martin, Benjamin called. He sucked at the mules and turned the wagon into the yard. Martin strode over and stuck out his hand. Ben, good to see you again. And you as well, Benjamin responded, turning the firm grip. Heard tell you been away. I was. Martin noticed the sweat on his brow. You look like you could stand a spell out of the sun. Come on, I've got some wine cooling off in the ice house. Or are you in a hurry? Benjamin shook his head and swung down. Martin nodded, glancing up at the sun. Grassy now, with the hay still dry. It's a scorcher today. Too hot out to do much of anything. As they walked around the back of the house to where a table sat beneath a large hickory tree, Martin called toward the house. In a moment, a girl in her late teens appeared at the door. Lucy, bring Mr. Steed and me some glasses. As they settled back, Benjamin took off his hat and wiped at his brow. Heard tell you were down in Pennsylvania. Yeah, just got back a few days ago. Hold on. Let me get the As Martin walked toward the ice house, Benjamin took a quick flash of envy. He looked around at the solidly built home and the outbuildings. He realized he was a lazy fool who did nothing with his life because he could have one too right now. It's cheap, he won't pay his own son money. According to the reports in the village, Martin had left in mid-April. That meant he had been gone about 2 months. Someday Benjamin vowed he would bring his farm to the point at which he could leave it in the hands of hired help for 2 months if he chose. He already fucking could. Leave it to his fucking children. He won't. That was what it meant to be a gentleman farmer. Well, no. He kept a bathe. The door to the house opened and the girl came out carrying a small tray with 2 glasses. Martin also reappeared, a bottle of wine in his hand. Benjamin, this is my daughter, Lucy. Benjamin nodded as the girl smiled and curtsied politely. Mrs. Harris was also named Lucy, and Benjamin could see the resemblance between mother and daughter. Thank you, Lucy. Martin uncorked the bottle and poured each man a glass as the girl went back into the house. You've been gone on business? Benjamin asked, sipping cold wine, letting it roll on his tongue so he could savor its cool tang. And you're telling me we can't keep our freezers frozen more in a couple of fucking days, but they had an ice house that would keep ice for a season? Martin leaned back, took a drink, then another, and reached for the bottle and refilled his glass. Benjamin sensed a sudden reticence and was embarrassed he had seemed surprised. He turned and gazed out across the cornfields to the south of the house. Corn, now over a foot high, and had the deep green color which foretold a bounteous harvest. "It's a good crop you got coming, Martin," he said. Martin nodded. "It's going to be another good year." He sipped at the wine, watching Benjamin over the top of his glass. Benjamin swung around to look to the north. The tree line along the creek mostly hid his property from view, but he nodded nevertheless, trying to hide his satisfaction. "How many acres do you figure you've got cleared now?" He calculated slowly, though he already knew the answer. "Well, we finished off about 40 acres last season, and between last fall and this spring, Nathan and I cleared 30 or 35. See, fucking dolt. The son did it. Right handsome farm. It's a good land. A place where a man could be happy to sink down his roots once and for all." Yeah. Both men fell silent. Martin stroked his beard thoughtfully. Although it was very much in fashion, Benjamin had never much cared for the Greek-style beard Martin chose to wear. It ran from ear to ear, but the chin and jaw were kept clean. How exhausting. Oh, fuck. Ew. Shaven, so the beard looked somewhat like a bandage, one wrapped around the face to cope with a toothache. Benjamin himself was clean-shaven and preferred it that way. Feeling Martin's eyes upon him, Benjamin concentrated on his mind. In the heat of his prickly Well, then drink it and get some more, you fool. Benjamin drained his glass. I said the ancients began his way. I went south to help Joseph Smith translate the Book of Mormon. Benjamin took the glass down the boat. What? He finally said when the words sank in. How could the words sink in? Except for that would be his old Bible. I wasn't on farm business. I went down to Harvard to help Joseph translate the sacred record. It's called the Book of Mormon. He picked up the wine bottle and motioned toward Benjamin's glass. Benjamin pushed it toward him, trying to keep his face impassive. After the events of that night 9 months ago, Palmyra Village and the surrounding township were in turmoil and wild rumors. And confirmed facts. Joseph for sure had the gold Bible. There was such thing as gold plates. It was a hoax. It was absolute truth. 7 men swore they'd seen the stone box at the top of the hill. Oh, so he stole from Pliny Sexton. In fact, the hill south of town was pockmarked with holes dug by hopeful treasure seekers. Benjamin had seen that for himself. One man claimed to have actually peeked through a window and seen the plates in Smith's hands, though the man was a known liar and no one gave him much credence. Reports of Joseph being shot at by known assailants were more likely true. The whole country was in an uproar, and more than one group was determined to get their hands on the gold. The gesture on Joseph and Emma had finally gotten so intense the pressure that they had moved back to Harlem. Yes. To live with her parents. Oh, damn. That would take a lot. That would be intense. It had been over 6 months ago, and gradually the furor, which always seemed to surround Joseph Smith, had died down a little. Suddenly, Benjamin realized Martin had refilled his glass, and the stern blue eyes were surveying him carefully. He cleared his throat. "And how is Joseph doing?" he said carefully. "He's fine. Emma was big with child when I left." God! They don't have the decency to say Emma was, you know, the later terms. The later ends of having a baby inside of her. She was big with child. I hope people didn't start saying that in the 90s. Because this guy made up that they said it in the 1830s. Oh damn, it was almost 200 years ago. Oh. 250th anniversary.